6. Teo's stomach tightened as the man's grey eyes drilled into him. The hiss of his voice echoed in Teo's head. Sweat beaded around his forehead like the black fog. His fear began to smother him. The man rose from his chair and placed his palms on the stone table in front of him. His gaze skipped back and forth between Annalee and Teo, as if trying to sum them up. My name is Eleazar Vanstone, Chief Justice of the court. I've been told you two are albino spies who have come into our city to extract our secrets. Is this true? No, squeaked Teo. No, really? Well, I've never heard of an albino casually strolling into a horde city for fun. Have you, Zeke? He glanced at the man who had captured Teo and Annalee. No, sir. Teo cleared his throat. It wasn't our choice to come here. He tried to think of the best way to say how they got to this world, but he was at a loss for words. He couldn't say they walked through a magical door that sent them into Zeke's pantry, could he? But Annalee spoke first. We went through a door of light that sucked us in and dropped us in that room. I see. Eleazar stood straight. A door of light brought you here. Well, why didn't you just say so? Zeke, it was a door of light that brought them. A scattering of snickers spread across the onlookers. That's right, she snapped. We didn't want to come here. We were forced to. But this isn't real. None of it's real. It's a dream. Dreaming. I understand now. Eleazar's smirk slowly turned sour. He slammed his palms down on the stone table. Do you think we're idiots, you fool? The slap of flesh on stone echoed through the room. Annalee jumped and her lip quivered. She was terrified. So was Teo. Now, once more, Eleazar said, why are you here? It seems odd, even for diseased albinos, to send children to do their dirty work. I don't know who the albinos are, Teo said. We were with the Roosh and... He was cut off by another round of chuckles echoing around the room. Roosh, Eleazar scoffed. You must have a large imagination. Roosh don't exist. But they do. I know them well. We've had enough. No more talk of magical doors and mythical creatures. Eleazar pursed his lips. If you can give no logical explanation for your presence, then we will be glad to execute you as the spies you are. Annalee gasped beside him. Tears flowed down her face. Oh, we could use you as test subjects for Baal's potion. Eleazar sat back in his seat. Our priest is close to curing the albino disease. The Red Lakes have poisoned you, but with our cure, all albinos can be healed and brought back under the Horde's rule. We don't have a disease, she cried out. You do. Can't you smell it? I can smell your rotting flesh, little child. Eleazar spat to one side. Elion has put so many lies into your albino heads. I feel pity for you. Elion isn't a liar, Teo said with an authority he didn't know he could muster. Eleazar clicked his tongue and shook his head. Poor child, already lost. Well, the choice is yours. Take the potion and turn Horde or die. Rather simple, if I do say so myself. Annalee sat like a statue, too terrified to speak. Anger flushed Teo's face. Die? Could this really be happening? The judge's eyebrow arched. Perhaps execution is the best. We'll take the potion, Teo interrupted. The judge frowned. Fair enough. Zeke, inform Baal. The potion will be administered here in this very courtroom. Zeke dipped his head and left the room. Teo didn't know how to feel. He avoided looking at Annalee as they awaited their fate. How could Talia do this to them? He could feel the heat on his cheeks as the thought ran through his mind. Zeke came back into the room, flanked by two other men. One was clearly a guard. The other could have walked straight out of one of Teo's childhood nightmares. His skin clung to his bones. He was much thinner than the other horde that Teo had met. His fingernails were long, and he wore a hood that cast his face in shadows. He almost looked more albino and less horde than the others, but in a twisted, disturbed kind of way. An air of dread came over the room as the wretched man passed. The council and the watchers bowed. Baal, high priest, Eleazar said with reverence, be pleased with the subjects we have taken for your most noble cause. Teo dared not connect with the priest's empty eyes, so he kept his eyes bowed, not out of reverence, but out of fear. They will do, Baal hissed. Let all who are here be witnesses to the new age of horde, Eleazar announced. May the Red Lakes no longer hold power over us. May... Silence, you fool, Baal interrupted. With one hand clenched at his side and the other extended, Baal stepped up and lifted Teo's chin with his long finger. There was something about staring into the priest's eyes that made Teo feel light-headed. The man dropped Teo's chin and pointed a bony finger at Annalee. You will drink first. Baal opened his fist and held out a glass bottle to Annalee. Drink! With hands trembling, she took the bottle. She closed her eyes, placed the rim of the bottle to her lips, and tipped it back. Good girl. She handed the bottle back to Baal, eyes wide. Teo watched as her eyelids fluttered. She started to shake. Her body suddenly went limp, and she crashed to the floor. Annalee! Teo started for her, but Zeke jerked him back. Annalee's body lay in a heap, breathing heavily. She was alive, but that was hardly a consolation. That's the picture there. He's been given the bottle, and there's Annalee lying next to him, and there's Baal with the hood on. An icy hand gripped his chin, turning his face away from Annalee and toward Baal's dreadful glare. Hot breath washed over his face. It was all he could do to keep himself from gagging at the putrid stench. Drink! Baal pressed the bottle into Teo's hand. He held the glass tightly, lifted the bottle to his quivering lip, and allowed the bitter black liquid to flow into his mouth. The world around him seemed to slow as he choked it down. Almost immediately, his mind began to fog. The world tipped, and a great heaviness settled on him. Teo collapsed to the floor, and the room went black. Chapter 7. Teo lay on a cold surface, head pounding. He pushed himself to a sitting position and placed his hands on his head, trying to stop the world as it spun around him. He found it hard to keep his eyes open. They burned. So did every part of his body. His skin felt like it was on fire. An awful smell accompanied the pain, the smell of rotting eggs and sour milk. The potion. A part of him was too afraid to look at his skin, but he couldn't stop himself. His skin was grey and diseased. He could feel the dry cracks covering his entire body. Seeing it, the pain increased and the smell overwhelmed him. He was horde. He was horde, which meant... Teo scanned the room and found Annalee crumpled in the corner. He scrambled over to her, ignoring the pain in his joints. Her skin matched his. The potion had turned them both horde. Annalee lay still, but her chest rose and fell. Her blonde hair lay messily across her cheek. He brushed it back. Her face, though grey and cracked, was still beautiful. He doubted she would see it that way. He leaned against the wall next to her and tried to make sense of it all. Why hadn't they awakened in the library after they were knocked out? Last time he'd fallen asleep here, he'd woken up in the other world. Then he recalled the fruit Stokes claimed kept a person from dreaming and travelling. Maybe it was inside the black potion that they'd taken. What had he done? Would he ever get back? His mind drifted to Elion and the seals. He didn't know what he was supposed to learn this time. How could he and Annalee accomplish anything locked up in this dungeon and covered with this wretched disease? If only Talia had told him something, where to go, what he was looking for, anything that would help. But he'd only told Annalee that they would find the seal when Annalee loved what she first despised. She remained asleep. Once she woke up and saw what they'd become, she would lose it, and he wouldn't blame her. He'd forced her into this world. Now they were in a dark dungeon, covered in this painful skin. This wasn't